Hello, welcome to Vlogmas Day 5. Today I am going to be giving you a book lover's guide to Christmas book buying. I have got a lot of books stacked next to me, and I'm basically going to be giving you recommendations for all the different readers in your life in the hope that I can give you some inspiration for some Christmas shopping. I have over 20 books to recommend you today, so we're gonna go through this without me attempting to give too many detailed descriptions on each one. It would be awesome if I, 1, didn't overheat my camera, and 2, didn't run my camera out of battery during filming this, so we're gonna give it a go. Book 1 is for the horror-loving musicians in your life. This is a book that might be perfect for a retired musician, or just somebody that really enjoys listening or playing music, and it is HeartShaped Box by Joe Hill. This is following a retired musician who loves collecting macabre items. He orders a ghost online, and when it comes to his house he quickly realizes it might have been a bit of a mistake because the ghost tries to chase him out of his own home. It's a good fun horror at the same time as being quite gritty and dark, but it's definitely got humour in there as well. I would liken this to the Studio 666 film, which is a horror film starring the Foo Fighters. It's got that kind of fun vibe to it at the same time as really pulling on some of the horror strings. So I had a great time reading this, and I think that the horror-loving, music-loving reader in your life will love it too. This next one is for the other horror-loving friend in your life who loves a good slasher film, and this is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This is a fantastic homage to the slasher genre. It is following a group of women who are all part of a final girl support group because they are all the final girls in their own horror experiences that have actually happened to them. Obviously it is fictional, but within the book that have actually happened to them. And they are being picked off one by one, and our main character is trying to find out what's happening before it gets worse. Obviously I really like this one, and I think it took a different tone to Grady Hendrix's other writing that I had read prior to this, but one that I really liked, and I think that the slasher-loving, horror-loving bookworm in your life will like it too. These next 3 are for readers who want to get a little bit mad at the patriarchy. The first one is You Could Be So Pretty by Holly Bourne. This is a really interesting dystopian YA novel. It is set in a society where beauty is valued above all else, and it's how worth is determined. We are following 2 different characters at school as they are leading towards this big event that will decide a lot of their futures. One of these characters is somebody who is strictly opposed to this society, and the other one is someone that really has been indoctrinated into it, and we are following the revelation that one of them realizes what is actually happening and how they try to get out of this. This is also having really interesting conversations about porn culture. It's got such vital discussions. I think this should be essential reading for everybody, to be honest, but if you have a reader in your life that you know would feel passionately about this and wants to get a little bit mad at patriarchy, I think they should read You Could Be So Pretty. I also think they should read The Women Could Fly by Megan Giddings. This is following a main character who has to be married by the time she is 30, otherwise she has to register everything she does through this monitoring system. Our main character in this book is 28, so she is fast approaching this 30 deadline. This book will just make you so mad. It will make you so mad. Her mum has also gone missing, and as well as trying to kind of fight these expectations of society, she's also trying to find out what happened to her mum, and we get glimpses of that as well in this story. This has a lot going on for such a short book, but it definitely packs a punch. And finally, for these 3, I have got Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. If you haven't read this book yet, you have been sitting on this. This is so fantastic, but it made me so mad. We are following our main character who is a scientist. She is a woman, and she is not necessarily easily accepted within this community and is often doubted and has her career affected throughout her life and throughout the life that we see in this book because of this. This is incredibly brilliantly written and makes you so mad. Oh, this still sits rent-free in my head, and I need to watch the TV series because honestly, it was just fantastic and made me so angry. And when I was reading it, I didn't really know how I was meant to feel because I felt mad and it made me feel angry when reading the book, and I didn't know if I wanted to feel angry when reading the book because it also felt weird to say it was a brilliant book because it was showing so many injustices that women face, and yet I couldn't stop reading it because it was written in such a brilliant way. To say that I was mad at this book just is testament to how well it was written for making me feel so intensely, and I think this would be a perfect recommendation for your reader who wants to get a little bit mad at the patriarchy. The next recommendation is for your art-loving reader who wants to see history through the eyes of a painting. This is I, Mona Lisa by Natasha Solomons. This is a very interesting book because it is told through the perspective of the Mona Lisa. So we are seeing her creation, how long that took, the whole process there, and then everything after and everything that she sees and experiences. It's an incredibly interesting take on a historical novel because seeing this through the eyes of the painting is very one-sided. Literally, we are only able to see what she sees and experience all of that through her eyes as the narrative perspective, and I just think it was an incredibly interesting way to view things, not only from the fact that we are seeing history over the years as it evolves, but she doesn't, but also she's a painting, and that is an incredibly interesting narrator, and I think that your art-loving reader would absolutely love this one. The next book is for your history-loving reader who maybe wants to learn about somebody in history that they don't really know much about, and this is Little by Edward Carey. If you haven't seen me recommending this book yet, I read this 2 Christmases ago now, I think, and I fell in love with it. My mum bought it for me as a Christmas present, and it is following the woman who started Madame Tussauds, which is not somebody I knew anything about, but her story is fascinating. And I absolutely loved reading this. It completely surprised me, and I just had such a good time with it. And I think if you're somebody that enjoys reading historical fictions, if you like the kind of book that goes throughout somebody's life, and you want to see everything that happens in between, you're gonna like this. I really enjoy when books do that because I just feel like you get so attached to the characters, and I love it. You're gonna love this. So I would highly recommend this to your reader who loves a good historical fiction, loves something that they maybe don't know too much about and finding out more about it, and just wants to know about somebody's life story. Very interesting, very captivating, and taught me a lot I didn't know. This next one is for your reader who is maybe struggling a little bit and needs a bit of support in the form of a book, and that is Ghosts by Dolly Alderton. This is probably one of my favourite contemporary books. This just hit hard. It is following a woman in her early 30s who feels like she should have life all worked out, but it just isn't necessarily working like that. This is very relatable. There is a lot in this I was nodding along to. It is quite emotional for that reason, and it just feels quite raw because it's all very real stuff. It doesn't feel like it's too fictionalized. Like, it is obviously a fiction, but it feels like you're reading something that could be written about somebody's life, and for that reason you are just nodding along the whole time because there's moments in this that I had experienced myself merged with moments that I hadn't, and was reading about our characters' experiences about them. It was just brilliant, and I will never not recommend this, and I think this book can just be a great support for somebody that feels like they're in a little bit of need of it. These next 2 are for readers who love books about books and maybe dream of owning their own bookshop one day. I just finished this one. It is The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. This book is following 3 different characters across different times who are all in some way linked to a vanishing bookshop. There is a real passion for books in this. There's a bit of a mystery woven through it. The characters are lovable. It's got fantastic atmosphere. I just feel like it's just perfect for any reader who loves books about books. I literally finished this a few days ago, so it's obviously still holding very clear in my brain, and I can't recommend it enough. The other book for the reader in your life who loves books about books is The Unlikely Escape of Ara Heat by H.G. Parry. You're probably sick of me talking about this in any recommendations video I do, but that is just because it was that good. This is following our main character whose brother can bring characters out of the pages of books, and in doing so he has created a little community of people, but there is somebody that's trying to stop all this happening. So there's a little bit of a drama, there's a little bit of action, you also get to meet some of your favourite book characters. It's such a fun time at the same time as having some pretty decent stakes on the line. It's great. It's an adventure. It's got books that we actually know of as well. It's not fictional books created for this book, and I love that even better when it's books that you've actually read that are being talked about in this book. I loved it, and I think that the reader who loves books about books in your life will love it too. If you have a reader in your life who loves mythology, especially Greek mythology and retellings, have they yet read Laur Olympus by Rachel Smythe? This is a graphic novel series, and it is just so much fun. It is a Hades and Persephone retelling in the modern world, still like gods and goddesses, but in a modern setting. It is great fun. The illustrations are gorgeous. There's different colours associated with different gods and goddesses, which just makes it feel a lot more interactive. There's a lot of humour in this. It's very cute. It's just such a fun series, and I think if you have a reader in your life who loves a good Greek mythology retelling, they're gonna love this. If there is a reader in your life who is looking for their next big fantasy series, I think they're gonna like the Fallen Kingdom series by Morgan Rhodes. I haven't spoken about this for a hot minute, but this is a brilliant epic fantasy series that is kind of Game of Thrones-esque. It's got all the big moments in it. It's got the big betrayals, the reveals, the twists, the turns. It is a great time. It's got magic. It's got so many different political dramas happening in it. I think if you have a reader in your life who loves that kind of thing, they are gonna love this. It's got enough books that you can really get stuck into it. They're pretty evenly sized as well, so it's not too intimidating, and it reads super easily. It flows really nicely at the same time as having all these big epic moments. I love it. It's great. I can't really tell you too many details about it because I've completed the series and I don't want to accidentally spoil what happens in the series by telling you about it, but trust me, Game of Thronesy kind of, but in my opinion a little bit easier to digest, so would highly recommend. For the fantasy lover who wants a little bit of comedy in their epic fantasies, how about Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames? This is a very fun satirical fantasy following a band of mercenaries who have not been together for a long time and get back together for one final quest. They go on this quest, they meet lots of people along the way. It's such a fun, feel-good, wholesome time at the same time as being a fantasy with battles and magic and big epic moments. Again, I love my big epic moments. It was just really good fun, and I love the humour in this as well. It's definitely very stylistic and was just very tongue-in-cheek and exactly the kind of humour I enjoy reading about. So I think if you've got a reader in your life who really likes fantasy but wants something that has a little bit more of that satirical, humorous vibe to it, it isn't too spoofy. This, I went into it worried it was going to be really spoofy. It doesn't read like that. It's just great. It's a fun time. Another fantasy recommendation. This is for your reader who loves a good fantasy but wants something really whimsy, really magical and really wintry, and that would be The Winter Garden by Alexandra Bell. I read this last Christmas and it is so, so beautiful. The atmosphere and the writing just completely blew me away. This is following a magical garden that disappears and captivates our main character so much that they want to find it again later in their life. And it's all about the magic that surrounds that and their journey that they go along. Honestly, it's just so beautiful. It's really pretty as a book. Like when you're reading it, everything is just beautiful. It's really got that atmosphere about it, and I just feel like it's perfect for this kind of season as well. It's a really good Christmas break book because it's not the whole time set in the winter, but it's definitely maintained that beautiful vibe throughout it. For your reader who wants some kind of strange, weird things happening and maybe like some short stories, I have got Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. This is a very interesting collection of short stories. I think I still have one or two left to read. But if you are somebody or you have somebody in your life who likes reading books that are just quite bizarre and leave you going, what? Then I think they're gonna love this. Some of the short stories in this, they were so strange. I can't even give you a proper description of this because there's so many of them, but it's a horror anthology of these short stories, all by Bora Chung, and they are all just completely weird and disturbing in their own ways. Do you know, I've called it horror, but actually the blurb says it's blurring the lines between magical realism, horror and science fiction, and it's actually genre defying. So it's got all of those elements to it. It's incredibly strange and very interesting, and each of the stories goes into a different kind of theme. For your sci-fi loving reader who loves it when a book weaves together very cleverly, I have got The Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. This is following multiple different characters across multiple different times and a mystery that is threading them all together in some way and how and why that weaves together. And I think that is about as much as I can tell you without accidentally spoiling it. It's a very short book. It's a very fast-paced book. I had such a good time with this. It is not the kind of thing I would usually pick up, but I was recommended it for a cover-to-cover episode and I loved it, and now I can't stop recommending it to other people. So if you or yourself likes books that have that clever weaving together element, I think that this is the perfect recommendation. For your reader that loves X-Men and wants to read about an American family with magical abilities, I have got Spoonbenders by Daryl Gregory. This was another one that was recommended to me for a cover-to-cover episode, and I had such a good time with this one. It is following an American family who all have these different abilities. They had a show as children that they performed on, and everybody knew who they were, and then this is following them as they're adults, and they're kind of trying to exist with their normal lives, but things are interfering with that. I love anything that has different types of magical abilities, and this played to that really well, and also at the same time as having this kind of like normal attempt at a family life. It was really good fun. It was definitely different from anything else I've read, and I think if you know somebody you think would enjoy this kind of thing, it's just such a fun writing style, and I think more people need to be reading this. For your reader that just wants to have a good cry, I have two book recommendations for you. We have got Pinko by Min Jin Lee. This book. This is following multiple generations of one family through their time living in Korea and moving to Japan. And everything that happens to them over the course of around 100 years. It starts in the early 1900s, and we are following this one family throughout time. And my gosh, it's just incredibly powerful, incredibly emotional, but also you just feel like you know these characters so well by the end of it, and you just refuse to let them go by the end of it. And seeing them throughout their lives, you just get so attached to them and everything that happens to them. It was beautiful. Highly recommend. Another one for your reader who loves a good cry is The Mountains Sing by Nguyen Phan Quay Mai. This one's set in Vietnam and has a kind of similar tone to Pinko in the sense of we are following one family, but we are getting a story from a grandma to her granddaughter. We are seeing the granddaughter's live lived experiences, and then we're hearing her grandma telling her the stories from when she was younger. We're seeing this story spread across 2 different wars that affected Vietnam and how it affects the characters. And again, incredibly emotional because you just feel like you know the characters so well and you just aren't okay with saying goodbye to them at any point. And this one hit very hard as well. So both of these, if you know someone who loves a good emotional book that's going to make them cry, both of these. For your reader who loves a good literary fiction and maybe still wants to open their own bookshop, we've got Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. This is by Satoshi Yagasawa. This is following our main character who moves in with her uncle, or moves above her uncle's bookshop to try and help run it after she goes through a breakup. She isn't somebody that reads very much. She isn't someone that has the passion for books, but in working at this bookshop, she very much develops that. And this is about her journey, everything that she experiences there, and how she kind of grows and changes as a person throughout her time working at this bookshop. I love anything that is books about books, especially when it involves working in a bookshop, so this ticked a lot of boxes for me. I probably should have said this is for your reader who loves translated literary fiction, because both of these are actually translated. This one, I forgot to say, is translated by Eric Ozawa, and the other one is She and Her Cat. This is by Makoto Shinkai and Naruki Nagakawa, and this is translated by Ginny Tapley Takamori. This is a really lovely series of stories that is about how cats help people, which is just so lovely and wholesome. There's little illustrations in it as well. I just love it so much. It's basically about how cats come into people's lives when they need them most and the power that that can have, and the story of those cats coming into people's lives, and it's super cute and it's super wholesome. I guess as well, this is for your reader who loves cats. It's great. For the reader in your life who loves Black Mirror and wants to feel like they're reading a Black Mirror episode, I have got The God Game by Danny Toby. This book, I read it years and years and years ago, and it still sticks with me to this day. It is incredibly dark. There's definitely a lot of trigger warnings, so if you feel you would need to, do look those up. But this is following characters who are partaking in a game that is telling them to do specific things. They get more extreme and more extreme as the game goes on, and if they die in the game, they die in real life. It's so interesting of a novel. Definitely feels something straight out of Black Mirror. It's intense, it's very dark, as I said. It's got incredibly high stakes, it's very dramatic. You will not be able to stop turning the pages of this book. And I haven't really spoken about it for a while, so I felt like it was justified including it in this video. Honestly, any Black Mirror fans, pick this one up. For your reader who wants to find love, I have got Yinka, Where Is Your Husband by Lizzie Damilola Blackburn. This is following our main character who really wants to find love, but her mum also wants to help find it for her. Her cousin has a wedding coming up and she really wants to try and find a date for this wedding. This is a contemporary romance. It's great fun. It's got a lot of humour to it and a lot of heart to it. It's just a really fun, easy time, and I think if you are somebody that is also in this position, you will definitely relate hard to the moments in this of trying to meet somebody new and overcoming those obstacles and those awkward feelings when you are first going through all of that. It's just fun. It's a good time. Really enjoyed it, and I think if you have a reader in your life who is in that position, they'll really enjoy it as well. And finally, without my camera overheating, I have got a book for the reader in your life who loves to travel, and that is Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. This is following 2 characters who are taking on the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a very long hike throughout parts of America. They are taking it on separately, but they keep coming together and coming across each other. It's an LGBT romance with the outdoors element, the hiking, the discovery of what all that means, and discovering who each other are and why they're both on this hike and this journey and how they kind of get involved in each other's lives. This is completely feel good. I love the fact that it takes place on the PCT because that is a hike that I find really interesting and fascinating to see more about. It just felt like such a good time and such a warm hug of a book. Certainly not without its dramatic moments, but most contemporary romances probably have those in there. I loved it, and I think it's a great book to end this video on, so if you have a reader in your life who loves to travel, especially relating to the PCT, then I think they'd love this. I'm honestly shocked that my camera did not overheat there, but it didn't. We succeeded. Those are all my book recommendations for the readers in your life this Christmas or for yourself. If you have any book recommendations that you would like to add to this list, please leave them in the comments because I would love to see. I'm always adding more books to my wish list, which is getting a little bit out of control, but it's fine. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you're enjoying Vlogmas. Thank you so much to my patrons for your constant support. I will see you in the next one.